Are you new to river cruising and not sure which cruise cabin to choose? The location of your river cruise cabin is much more important than you think, and for very different reasons than an ocean cruise. On an ocean cruise, your cruise cabin location can affect the amount of motion in the ocean you feel and how long it will take you to get to the main public areas. But for river cruising, these factors aren't really factors at all. Keep watching as we reveal the things you need to consider when choosing a river cruise cabin, the best cabin locations, and why even though every river cruise cabin has a window or a balcony, it doesn't always guarantee a view. Let's start with the types of cabins you'll find on a river cruise. The lowest grades of cabin are usually found on the lowest deck of the river cruise ship, but will always still have a window. There are no inside cabins on a river cruise, so during the day you'll always have some natural light in your cabin. These cabins are close to or below the waterline, which is why the windows are higher. You might also hear the water sloshing around because you are much closer to it. For these reasons, cabins on the lowest decks are the cheapest and most economical cabins on a river cruise ship. For the amount of time you plan to spend in your cabin, it might be a really good option. River cruise cabins also usually offer solo cabins, so these are a great choice for anyone who is cruising on their own and doesn't want to pay a supplement. Moving on to standard balcony cabins, these are located on the middle and upper decks of a river cruise. Most river cruise ships don't have balconies that you can sit out on like ocean cruises and are mostly Juliet balconies, but they still give you the option to open the sliding windows and get a fantastic view outside while sailing down the river. Another wonderful thing about having a balcony cabin on a river cruise is that you can wake up in the morning and watch the scenery go by from the comfort of your bed. There are a few river ships that do have proper balconies, and we enjoyed one of these on our cruise with Ama Waterways. I'll leave a link to the tour of our balcony cabin on Ama Magna in the description for you. Finally, the other main type of cruise cabin you'll find is a suite. A suite provides you with the most square footage, a balcony, and usually comes with perks like a minibar. Some even come with a double balcony so you can wave to one another from each of them. The suites on board a river cruise are the most expensive but are usually in prime locations. We stayed in a French balcony suite on TUI river cruises and a suite on Ama Waterways. Both were really nice, so we'll leave the links to tours of each of these in this video's description. So let's talk about cabin location next. The factors you need to consider when choosing a cabin on a river ship are the deck, where the cabin is situated on the deck, and where the public areas are. River cruises do sometimes have laundrettes, but these aren't too close to cabins, so you don't need to worry about this for river cruising. Our biggest piece of advice when choosing a cruise cabin on a river ship is to avoid the cabins at the back of the ship. The engines are at the back and can cause your bed to literally vibrate. Now, this might be a feature that you've been looking for in a cruise cabin all this time, but as well as the vibrations, you also experience a lot more noise. We have experienced this firsthand and it was not good, because even though cruise ships stay overnight or later in ports, they still quite often travel overnight. In the middle of the night, we've been woken up by the noise and the vibrations when the ship has been moving on more than one occasion. If these are the only cabins left on a cruise, this is the reason. Our second piece of advice applies if you enjoy an early night. The cabins closest to and directly below the main lounge on a river cruise are likely to hear a bit of the entertainment during the evening. To be honest, entertainment on a river cruise doesn't really go past midnight, but if you plan to head back to your cabin early, you may hear some of the noise and the music. For us, this hasn't ever really been an issue, as we tend to stay up until the entertainment is finished, but there was one night we did go to bed earlier and we heard a little bit of noise from the lounge. We would choose a cabin near the lounge over a cabin at the back of the ship every time. The perfect location would be somewhere near the middle so that neither the engines or the lounge would interrupt your sleep. So which deck is the best on a river cruise ship? Personally, we always choose the upper deck on a river cruise, usually deck 3. But why? What we've noticed is that just because you have a window or a balcony, it doesn't always guarantee a view. A situation when you might find yourself with no view is when the ship is docked and your cabin is below the line of the dock. This leaves you with a wonderful view of a wall. The one thing you can do to minimise this is choose a cabin on the highest deck, usually deck 3, and this is the main reason why cabins on the upper deck are the most expensive. This deck gives you the most chance of a view whilst docked. A great example of this is when we docked in Passau, Germany on a Danube river cruise. As you can see, deck 3 was the only deck above the dock line. This is much more likely to happen when the river levels are low and the ship sits lower in the water. One thing worth knowing is that even if you're not on the docking side, there's the risk of another ship mooring against yours and you've got a view of the other ship. In some places, river cruises even have 3 river ships moored against one another. Being the middle ship in this situation means that neither side is best. Deck 3 is also a good choice because on cruise lines like Riviera Travel, cabins on this deck enjoy the perks of Riviera Plus. Riviera Plus means that passengers receive daily gifts in the cabin, a bottle of champagne, a Nespresso coffee machine in the cabin, luxury toiletries and drinks vouchers that you can redeem in the bar. You also have the use of a smart handset with unlimited calls, text messages and internet usage for use while you're out exploring the ports. One thing to be aware of for this deck is that because you are directly below the top deck, you may hear the crew running up and down when the ship is coming into dock. So, knowing all of this, should you pick a cabin on port or starboard side? Which is the best option to choose? We discovered a way that you can work out which side of the river ship is likely to dock and will therefore give you the best chance of a view if there is one. It's important to know that river ships always dock facing upriver against the flow of the water. Firstly, find out which way your cruise is travelling along the river. Don't always assume that a river flows from north to south because the Rhine actually runs south to north. Once you know this, it's worth taking a look at a map of the river to see which bank the destinations are located. From this, you should get a pretty good idea of whether your river ship will dock on port or starboard side. If your cabin is on the upper deck, you've got the best chance of a view unless you're double stacked. The reality is that however long you take trying to work out which side of the ship is best, you can still never 100% guarantee the view you have from your cabin. To choose the best cruise cabin, we recommend following these 3 simple rules. 1. Avoid cabins located towards the rear of the ship. 2. Avoid cabins near or below the ship's lounge. And 3. Choose the highest deck that fits your budget. For us, this cabin we chose for our Eastern Danube River cruise was in the best location, so why not watch this video next to see for yourself.